Have you ever wondered how far humanity has gone in the name of punishment? It's a question that can send a shiver down your spine. We like to believe that we've progressed, that the horrors of the past are behind us. But to truly understand where we are, we have to look back. Tonight, we're going to do just that. We will peel back the layers of time and peer into an era where justice was a completely alien concept. We're stepping into grim, candle-lit dungeons of medieval Europe. Human ingenuity was twisted into terrifying instruments of pain. Tonight we journey into the darkest corners of medieval history, a world both impossibly distant and chillingly familiar. This isn't a ghost story, though the tales we'll tell are haunted by the real screams of real people. This is a descent into the cold, hard reality of a time when fear was a tool and pain was a language of those in power. We will explore devices designed not just to end life, but to shatter body and spirit in agonizing ways. So get comfortable, dim the lights, and prepare yourself. This is not for the faint of heart. Before we begin, a word of caution. The subject matter is graphic and disturbing. It deals with extreme violence and suffering. Viewer discretion is strongly advised, but make no mistake, these devices were real, not fantasy. Real instruments used on real people centuries ago, built with chilling precision and a terrifying knowledge of the body's limits. These accounts come from historical records and grim castle inventories. Prepare for a shocking ride into a past darker than fiction. If you're ready, let's open the heavy, creaking door to the first chapter. The Iron Maiden, a name synonymous with medieval cruelty. Imagine a life-sized iron sarcophagus. The inside is lined with strategically placed iron spikes designed to inflict maximum pain, not instant death. A condemned person is forced into the maiden. The doors slam shut. Darkness, the spikes press in, causing slow, agonizing bleeding. The victim is trapped, unable to move. Time loses meaning. The isolation is absolute. The Iron Maiden of Nuremberg was a well-documented device. The doors closed slowly, prolonging the agony. Death came slowly through blood loss, shock and suffocation. The Iron Maiden, a masterpiece of cruelty. The rack was a symphony of brute force. At first glance, it might not look as immediately terrifying as a spiked coffin, but this unassuming design hid a vile purpose. The victim would be laid flat, wrists and ankles bound to the frame. The torturer would slowly increase the tension. With each turn, the victim's body would be pulled in opposite directions. The process always began slowly, a warning. As the handle continued to turn, the discomfort would escalate into agony. The victim's limbs would be stretched beyond their natural limits. The goal was to extract a confession. Even if a victim survived, the damage was permanent. The rack stands as a chilling testament to the lengths institutions would go. It was a machine designed to unmake a person. Before we get into our next story, I just want to give a quick shout out to the like button. If you could just reach down and give that like button a gentle tap, it really helps the channel out. Okay, so picture this. You're standing in a bustling medieval town square. In the center is a large, heavy wooden wheel. This is the breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel, a device designed to shatter life in the most public and agonizing way imaginable. The condemned person would be secured to the wheel, their arms and legs stretched out across the wooden spokes. The executioner would then use a heavy iron bar or wooden club, designed for one thing, breaking bones. The executioner would work methodically, striking the victim's limbs. The goal was to break every major bone in the limbs, turning them into a mangled mess. Limbs would be bent and twisted at unnatural angles, threaded in and out of the wheel's structure. With the body twisted into the wheel, the entire apparatus would then be hoisted up on a tall pole and left for all to see. The sun would bake them, the cold would freeze them, and birds of prey would be attracted to their open wounds. This was the ultimate goal of the breaking wheel, a slow, public, and utterly dehumanizing end. It was a warning displayed high above the town square, telling everyone what awaited those who dared to step out of line. The next device on our list is one that preys on a very specific and primal fear. It's not about breaking bones or stretching limbs. It's about a slow, deliberate, and invasive violation of the human body. It's called the Judas Cradle, or sometimes the Judas Chair. And if you think the breaking wheel was bad, just wait. The Judas Cradle was a simple-looking device, which somehow makes it even more terrifying. It consisted of a tall, three-legged stool, like a tripod. But instead of a flat seat on top, there was a sharp, pyramid-shaped point, usually made of wood or iron. That's it, a stool with a pyramid on top. Now, the victim would be brought before this device, completely stripped of their clothing. They would be hoisted into the air by a system of ropes and pulleys, suspended directly above the pyramid's unforgiving point. The interrogator would control the ropes with terrifying precision. The victim would dangle there, helpless and exposed, seeing the sharp point waiting below. The purpose of the Judas cradle was to impale the victim, slowly. The point was positioned to enter one of the body's orifices, typically the anus for men or the vagina for women. The torturer would carefully, gradually lower the victim onto the tip. The initial contact would be excruciating. The full weight was not dropped at once. They were lowered just enough for the point to break the skin and begin its slow journey, stretching and tearing tissues. The process was prolonged for as long as possible. The interrogator could use the threat of lowering further to extract a confession. They could raise them up slightly, a false relief, then lower them back down. Sometimes extra weights were tied to the legs to force the pyramid deeper. The pain was constant, a searing internal agony. Hours would crawl by. Every slight movement only caused the pyramid to dig deeper. The pain reduced the victim to pure primal suffering. The public and humiliating nature added psychological devastation. Often the device was left uncleaned between victims. The wooden or iron point would be covered in blood, filth, and bacteria. Even survivors faced almost certain infection. Even if released after confessing, many were condemned to a slow death from sepsis days or weeks later. The Judas cradle was effectively a death sentence. The goal was often to break spirit, not always to kill. The cycle of agony and brief respite could go on for hours, even days. Victims would lose consciousness, be revived, and the torture would continue. Ultimately, death came slowly, internal bleeding or raging infection. The victim would bleed out or succumb to fever, all while suffering humiliation. The Judas cradle stands as one of the most horrific examples of torture ever conceived, a pyramid of pure, unadulterated pain. The pear of anguish, also known as the choke pear or Pope's pear, was designed to destroy you from the inside out. This metal pear was inserted into a victim's orifice. Turning the key caused the segments to expand outwards, stretching the flesh. The pressure would be immense, the pain indescribable. The victim could do nothing but feel themselves being torn apart from within. If used in the mouth, it would shatter teeth and break the jaw. In other orifices, it caused massive internal tearing and permanent damage. It annihilated the body part it occupied. The slow expansion meant torment could be drawn out. Some versions had sharp spikes or blades on the inside, shredding from within. The victim would be left to bleed out internally. The pear of anguish is a chilling reminder of human cruelty. Now picture a truly diabolical device in ancient Greece, the brazen bull, a life-size bull cast in gleaming bronze. But this isn't art. It's a furnace, a tomb, an instrument of unspeakable cruelty. Perilas of Athens created it for Phalaris, tyrant of Akragas. A victim was placed inside, the door sealed, and a fire lit beneath. As the persons screamed, their cries travelled through tubes, modulating into the bellowing sound of an enraged bull. Pain became a spectacle. Phalaris, impressed, made Perilas the first victim. After being cooked, Perilas was thrown from a cliff. Eventually, Phalaris himself was overthrown and met his end inside the brazen bull. A fitting end for a tyrant. So we've talked about devices that stretch the body and devices that roast it, but our next instrument of torture worked on a completely different principle. It didn't pull you apart, it crushed you together. Known by the grimly poetic name the Scavenger's Daughter, this was an English invention created during the reign of King Henry VIII. It was designed by Sir William Skevington, Lieutenant of the Tower of London. The Tower was not a place you wanted to end up. This device was his answer to the infamous rack. While the rack pulled limbs in opposite directions, the Scavenger's Daughter did the exact reverse. An iron contraption shaped like a large, hinged hoop, Skevington's gyves. Deceptively simple in appearance, its function was compressive agony from all sides. Here's how it worked. A victim would be forced to kneel. The top bar was placed across the back of the neck. Wrists were shackled to the middle hinged bar. Ankles were clamped to the bottom bar. A screw mechanism tightened the hinge, folding the device and the person inside it. The victim became a compact, unnatural kraut, a human pretzel of pain. As it tightened, the head was forced down toward the knees, legs pushed up toward the chest, agony on the spine, neck and ribcage. Collarbones and shoulder blades could fracture. Blood could be forced from nose and ears. A slow, suffocating, bone-breaking process meant to elicit confession. Imagine the feeling, locked in an iron embrace, only fingers move. Every breath a struggle as the chest is squeezed, the spine under immense pressure, like it might snap, your body used as a weapon against itself. Joints scream, muscles cramp, ribs threaten to shatter with each gasp. This wasn't quick. Victims could be left for hours, tightened turn by turn. Psychological torment matched the physical. Time and space shrink to iron and pain. One famous victim was Guy Fawkes, captured in the gunpowder plot of 1605. After his arrest, he was taken to the Tower for interrogation. The threat of the scavenger's daughter and the rack was used to break him. The terror of the device was as effective as the device itself. Ultimately, the scavenger's daughter needed no fire or blades. Simple mechanics and a body turned into an instrument of absolute terror. A slow, methodical, crushing agony meant to break bones and the human spirit, a chilling example of physics twisted into torture. So far we've looked at massive, intimidating devices, the brazen bull, the scavenger's daughter. These dominated a room and promised a grand, horrifying spectacle, but our next device proves horror can be small. It could fit in the palm of your hand, small and simple, yet capable of extreme pain. I'm talking about the thumbscrew, also known as the pillywinks. At its core, the thumbscrew is a very simple vice. 2 metal bars, 3 metal bars, connected by a long threaded screw. The victim's thumb, their finger, or even their big toe would be placed between the bars. The torturer would then begin to slowly, deliberately turn the handle. With each turn, the bars press closer and closer, applying focused, escalating pressure. A tiny, crushing machine. Intimate and terrifying. The first stage is a dull, intense ache as the flesh is compressed. But as the torturer continues to turn, the pressure becomes sharp and unbearable. The metal bars would bite deep into the skin. The delicate phalanges of the finger would begin to crack, then they would splinter and finally shatter completely. Waves of nauseating pain would shoot up the victim's arm. The process was agonizingly slow and methodical. The interrogator could pause at any moment, asking questions. The victim could see their own finger being mangled right before their eyes. Often the inside of the vice was studded with small sharp points to dig deeper, a tool designed to break a person's will, piece by painful piece. Imagine the scene, strapped to a chair in a cold, damp cell. The interrogator holds up this small metal object. It doesn't look like much next to the rack or the wheel. He calmly places your thumb into the device and gives the handle a single, gentle turn. An uncomfortable pressure begins to build. He asks his first question. You refuse to answer. He gives the screw another turn. The pressure is now a deep, throbbing pain. He asks again. You stay silent, sweat beading on your forehead. Another turn. The pain is now sharp, blinding. With the next turn, you hear a sickening soft crunch, the sound of bone giving way. The pain explodes from a single point into a fire that consumes your entire hand and shoots up your arm. Your vision whites out for a second. The interrogator's voice seems distant. He can keep doing this all day. 9 more fingers. Then your toes. The sheer hopelessness and focused agony made the thumbscrew brutally efficient at extracting confessions. The thumbscrew was widely used across Europe for centuries, particularly during the witch trials and the Spanish Inquisition. It was portable, required no special setup, could be applied by a single person, used in formal dungeons and in more impromptu settings. Because it rarely killed outright, it was seen as a lesser form of torture. But for the person experiencing it, the pain was anything but lesser. Even if released, survivors were permanently maimed. Fingers a useless, mangled mess of shattered bone and ruined tissue. Unable to work, unable to write, unable to feed themselves. The thumbscrew didn't just cause temporary pain, it inflicted lasting shame and disability. A reminder that the most terrifying things can come in the smallest packages. A simple turn of a screw could shatter a person's body and their life. The heretic's fork wasn't as visually gruesome as other devices, but its psychological cruelty was off the charts. It was a length of iron with 2 sharp forks. Strapped around the neck, one set of prongs digs into the flesh under the chin, the other against the breastbone. Any movement drives the spikes deeper. The horror was in its endurance. It made it impossible to lower your head or nod off. The torturers waited for the mind to unravel under the strain and sleep deprivation. The purpose was to induce confession through mental collapse. Victims would say anything to make the pain stop. The heretic's fork was a tool of absolute control, stripping away autonomy. It turned sleep into an instrument of torture. So, for our final and 10th story, we're looking at a form of punishment that combined physical agony with the most profound public humiliation. It's known as coffin torture, and it is every bit as awful as it sounds, but this wasn't about being buried alive in a traditional coffin. No, this was far more visible and in many ways far more cruel. The coffin in question was actually a cage, crudely constructed from iron bars and shaped roughly like the human body. It was a tight fit, designed to hold a person in a state of near total immobilization. There was no room to sit. There was no room to turn over, just enough space to exist in a state of suspended misery. Now, imagine being the person sentenced to this fate. You're stripped of your clothes. Then you're forced into this cold, unyielding metal cage. The bars press into your skin from every direction. The cage is locked and you are hoisted high into the air by a chain, often attached to a gibbet, attached to the walls of a castle, or in a town square. There you hang, suspended between earth and sky, completely at the mercy of the elements, and at the mercy of the watching crowd below. Your life becomes a public spectacle, a piece of grim theatre for all to see. The public nature of this punishment was a key part of its terror. It served as a stark warning to anyone else who might consider breaking the law. For the victim, it was ultimate degradation. People would gather below to mock you, to jeer, to throw stones, to throw rotten food. There was no privacy, no dignity, just the endless parade of hostile faces looking up at you. You were a living scarecrow, a symbol of justice for some. For you, a slow, agonizing descent into despair. Every shout, every laugh from the crowd, another nail in your psychological coffin. And then there were the elements, hanging there in the open, completely exposed. On hot summer days, the sun would beat down on you relentlessly, baking your skin, causing severe sunburns and dehydration. The metal cage would become scorching hot, burning your flesh. In the cold, you'd be subjected to freezing rain, sleet, snow, the biting wind cutting through you, leading to hypothermia. There was no shelter, no escape, left to endure whatever nature decided to throw at you, day after agonizing day. As days turned into weeks, the physical toll became unimaginable. Thirst, a constant, maddening torment. Sometimes a sympathetic guard might offer water on a long pole, or a charitable stranger, but this was rare. More often you were left to slowly dehydrate. Hunger would gnaw at you until you were skin and bones. The cage's tight confines caused muscles to cramp and atrophy. Sores developed where iron bars pressed into your flesh. Those sores festered, becoming infected, with no hope of being cleaned or treated. The wildlife became another source of terror. Birds, crows, ravens, drawn to your helpless form, perching on the cage, dark eyes watching. They would peck at you, tearing at your flesh with sharp beaks, often going for your eyes first. You were unable to defend yourself, forced to endure attacks as you slowly wasted away. The creatures became tormentors and undertakers, beginning their work long before you died. A truly horrific image. The cause of death was never one single thing, a combination of many factors: dehydration, starvation, exposure to the elements, infection from open wounds. For some, the end came from constant attacks by birds and vermin. The process was intentionally slow, to maximize suffering and make an example. Even after death, the body was often left in the cage to rot, picked clean by scavengers, a final gruesome warning hanging over the town for months or years, until only a skeleton remained. This punishment highlights the medieval world's perspective on justice, where public shaming and prolonged suffering were seen as deterrents. The coffin cage wasn't just execution, it was a message, brutal and visible. It told everyone who saw it that this was the price of crime, a slow, public, agonizing erasure of a human being designed to terrify, and it succeeded. A grim reminder of how justice can be twisted into pure cruelty. And that brings us to the end of our journey through some of the most disturbing and inventive instruments of pain ever created. From the slow, piercing agony of the Judas cradle to the public degradation of the coffin torture, each of these devices tells a dark story. They are a chilling reminder of humanity's darkest impulses, a testament to the terrifying creativity that can be born from a desire for control, punishment, vengeance. It's hard to look at these things and not feel a sense of profound unease, knowing that these were not props from a horror movie, but real tools used on real people. Looking back at these brutal practices forces us to confront a very uncomfortable part of our shared past. It shows us a time when suffering was not only acceptable but was often put on public display as a form of entertainment and social control. The line between justice and cruelty was not just blurred. In many cases, it was completely erased. These stories are more than just shocking tales. They are a vital lesson from history, a warning etched in iron and blood about the dangers of unchecked power and the depths of human cruelty. They serve as a stark contrast to the values of compassion and human rights that we strive for today. It's crucial that we don't forget these stories, no matter how unsettling they are. By remembering the horrors of the past, we arm ourselves with the knowledge and the empathy needed to prevent them from ever happening again. The world has changed in many ways, but the capacity for cruelty still lingers in the shadows of human nature. These devices are a powerful reminder of why we must always champion justice, due process, basic human dignity for everyone. Let's hope that history never repeats itself, and that these instruments of agony remain where they belong, locked away in museums and history books as a lesson learned. So that's going to do it. If you found this journey into the dark side of history as fascinating as I did, and you want more shocking stories from the past, please consider helping the like button find a comfortable place to rest. Also, if you're new here, I'd love for you to join our community by hitting that subscribe button and ringing the notification bell so you don't miss any of our strange, dark, mysterious stories. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.